In this video, we're talking about ISTPs. What's up, team? It's Sherman here from Geek Psychology. I just wanted to talk about ISTPs, so that's what we're going to do. I've had the privilege of profiling several, and I have some in my life that I didn't really think about being ISTPs until we actually got into it, until I started thinking about their type more and doing some profiling sessions with them and stuff like that. So I just wanted to go through the cognitive functions and some of my feedback and information about it. So hopefully you can be a better ISTP if you're watching this, or you can relate to ISTPs better if you have one in your life as well. So the start is that it's this amazing combination of insanely fine-tuned logic with getting into action, with embracing reality, with getting in touch with the world. And it's so fascinating for me because I'm an INFP, so I'm all in my feelings and my values and in my head, in ideas and abstractions and things like that. So ISTPs are just like mind-bogglingly cool to me. So let's go through the cognitive functions and talk about what all the different parts are doing. So if this is something that's new to you, if you don't really understand your type too well, this should help. So first of all, your dominant function, your leading function, your main driver in life is what is called introverted thinking. And this can be short-coded as TI. I consider it to be this analytical kind of wizard or engineer or technician or something like that, whatever fits your life. But basically, it's all about refining and purifying logic. It's about making clean, clear, concise definitions and connections and frameworks of that information and making sure that it makes sense to you. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be actionable as much as it is like it's good information. Like, this is important stuff to know. I want to know, like, what is the seed, the main internal little nugget of information that's going to break open all this other information and be the key point that is used for leverage. And that leverage is going to help you get things done and make better choices with that information. It's very binary. It's like, is it true or false? Is it correct or is it incorrect? And that goes down to the deepest, smallest level. If it's something that you're interested in, of course. If it's not, then you're probably not going to spend too much time on it, but you'll probably still want to take in as much information as possible in the sense of, I want this model, this information to be clean and to make sense and to be this elegant system, this elegant concept or whatever it is. And so it's kind of like also understanding how all the different parts and pieces go together, how it all fits, kind of like puzzle pieces, like this information here and this information here. If they're working together, it's going to produce this result, and it's very fine-tuned in that sense. And with that information, you can kind of, from my understanding, supplement it or put it onto another thing and understand how that other thing works. If it's a machine or something like that, right? Understanding how one component works will probably give you insights into how similar machines work that are using similar components, because it makes sense. Like, you can easily kind of substitute the information and it fits or it doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, then you feel this compulsion to gain more information about it. And if you've noticed, all of this is talking about sorting information and organizing it within your head. And that is, that's an introverted function. That's what it does. And for introverted thinking, we're talking about making logical, clear decisions, impersonal or detached decisions. Many people want to call them objective, but it's not really objective because it's based on your subjective understanding. And through that, right, so through that you're going to be refining and clearing up that information, making it more concise, making it more of a perfect system. And that takes a lot of processing time. For an introvert, if you go out and you get all this new feedback and new information and it doesn't really fit with how you understand reality to work, then it takes defragmentation time or processing time, and you need to go over it and really make sense of it. And that can be exhausting, and that's why introverts, especially ISTPs, need that time alone every once in a while to figure out the system. And it's not just necessarily alone, like by yourself, but within your mind, to allow your mind to do its thing and to work, right? Work in the way that it's best for you, and that's purifying that logic. Purifying the reasons and the rationale behind things. And so that's just the dominant function right there. But hopefully that gave you some insight into that. Moving from there, you have extroverted sensing. I'm not really going to explain how you get all these functions and the codes and stuff, but you basically need a way of making decisions. You need a way of taking in information. And you need a way of interacting with the outer world and the inner world. So introverted thinking covers internal decisions. So extroverted sensing covers that outer world information gathering or perceiving. And so sensation is taking in information, right? Through your senses, through the 5 senses. And it's doing that extroverted. So it's essentially using your body as the instrument that's going to pick up on a lot of that information. Just as a side note, introverted sensing would be like capturing that information and then storing it and recalling it and reviewing it for later. But extroverted sensing is like, I'm going to get out into the moment, into my body, and experience life and immerse myself in it, in that presence of the moment. And so for people who use extroverted sensing, or I consider it to be like this gladiator kind of character, then you're going to kind of want to turn things up a notch, right? Get a little bit more life juiced out of this thing, whatever it is. It could be actual, that like risk-taking behavior, or it could just be, eating some nice food and really tasting that steak or whatever it is. But it's probably not as much going through concepts and ideas and theorizing and things like that, because that's intuition. That's not really your main strength, although it is something that I'll talk about a little bit that you go back and forth between, but it's not really your strongest point. Although you probably love it in some ways. In some ways more than you love extroverted sensing, because extroverted sensing is pushing you outside of yourself. It's taking you out of that internal brain, section where it's all processing risks and leverage and calculating all this information. It's like, well, let's just live it. Let's get more experience. Let's take it in and see what happens and see what emerges from these actions. And it can be pretty exhausting, right? But it is a strength of yours, and it's something that if you're going to perfect probably your body as an instrument, you're going to need more experience with it. The ISTPs I've known are either extremely good sports athletes, or into like bodybuilding or tennis or something like that, or into just like metalworking and tinkering and cars, things like that. Also, even in the business world, you have a definite place of, I'm going to make sense of this and I'm going to take an action with it, and we're going to get that feedback and read people's body language through it, through extroverted sensing, because it's very in tune with picking up on all these little cues and hints and things, right? So you can tune that into whatever you're trying to do. I met an ISTP. I didn't realize it at the time. This was kind of before I understood personality type, but it's a Japanese shamisen. It's kind of like a guitar. It was actually a sanshin, so it's from Okinawa anyway, and it's got like 3 strings. It's, I guess, pretty easy to use for people who are somewhat musically inclined. I am not. And I was trying to teach myself, and I suck with it. It's not really my thing. But yeah, one of my ISTP friends at the time came over and just picked it up, and she just started like, just played it, no problem. It was understanding how to use her body to produce the sounds that she wanted and fine-tuning that based on, the sounds that came out of it, right? It was just like this in-the-moment, quick calibration of how to use her body. And I find that so amazing. That's definitely a superpower that STPs have. And as an ISTP, it's like, it's already this constant drive to fine-tune it, but you need to push yourself out there to get more experiences, to get more contexts, so that you can collate that information a bit better. Does that make sense? Also, you probably have kind of a competitive edge, because you want to challenge things a little bit. You want to challenge the system to understand it and to break it down into the essential pieces and parts of it. Kind of like an alchemist or something like that in a way, just like what are the core key components, and then bringing that out. But that took me a little bit off of extroverted sensing. But those two together, those are your real key strengths. Apparently, like Miles Davis, Tom Cruise, maybe even Michael Jordan, like these are professionals at adapting to the moment, because extroverted sensing is going to give you that desire to go with what happens, to be more spontaneous, and to allow things to pop up and to deal with them and kind of put out those fires, or instinctively pounce on whatever comes. And introverted thinking as your driver is going to give you that anchor that's going to remain the same. And once you understand that system of how things work, then you can easily move into a new context and react to whatever comes. Does that make sense? So let's move down to the tertiary function. So this is generally a place of stress relief and kind of curiosity. It's more of a childlike energy, and it can be childish as well. And that's introverted intuition for you. So that's the polar opposite of extroverted sensing, introverted intuition. So this is another learning process. This is a perceiving process, and it's intuition. So intuition is, it's like going to the sensory world and then bouncing from there and to there and to there, and like starting to connect all the different pieces. Speculation, filling in the blanks, connecting the dots, those kind of things. One of my ISTP friends, I asked her, if she was interested in abstract conversation. She's like, I'd have to be drunk to talk about that shit. Like, it's just like, I have no interest in it. And I've talked to several other SPs that feel the same way. Whereas others that I've talked to are more into like meditation and Socrates and philosophy and things like that, which is coming, in my opinion, from that introverted intuition realm of things. But we'll talk a little bit about that push and pull briefly a little bit later. But so intuition, right, it's connecting the dots, connecting those pieces and things like that, and it's introverted, so it's inside yourself. It's all going on inside yourself. And it's probably not, like, as a strength, it can come up with these amazing insights that seem like completely, I can't think of the right word, professional, I suppose, like just insane knowing of how things are going to happen, how things are going to work out, like very well informed, I suppose. But there's this lack of language to explain it. But in the tertiary position, sorry, my legs just fell asleep. In the tertiary position, it doesn't have as much experience. It's not a strength, right? It's more of a weakness. It's some place that you go to when you're feeling defensive, when the world is telling you things that you don't necessarily want to hear, and you just want to stay in that introverted realm. So that keeps you in the introverted side, and it's a way of collecting information internally. And if you're collecting information or dealing with it and reviewing information or whatever internally, mulling over it, and you're also making decisions internally, that means you're not getting feedback from the outer world. That means you're not in touch with reality as much. And there can be this loop of just endless diving deeper and deeper into concepts and your understanding of how the world is working without ever getting feedback, without ever challenging that information. Because that introverted intuition, it's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, and that's going to be good for you, in your opinion, if you're in a defensive way. Right? You don't want to take in other information if you're defensive, if it's going to contradict you, if it's going to push you in another direction that you don't really want to go. It's going to do that for you. It's going to give you that information. So it's important to make sure that you have that awareness of the body, extroverted sensing as a strength, your auxiliary function, and introverted intuition as the mind, or the more intangible aspects of things, and knowing which is speaking and which should be speaking louder, and which you should be listening to in the moment. There are definitely times and places where you can and should go into introverted intuition, because it's going to relieve that stress for you. But you don't want to trust it as the core way of taking in information and informing your decisions. You want to leave that to extroverted sensing. So if it's popping up in some kind of negative ways, it might make you a little bit paranoid about things. Might not, but you might not really trust people's motives, and it could be leading you towards speculation. And when that happens, you really need to take that as a sign of like, okay, it means I need to actually get into action. It means I need to go approach the person or get my hands on the situation and figure it out and deal with it from there, and not just let my mind find the answers and inform those decisions, right? So be aware of that and use it properly. Meditation is amazing, especially for ISTPs, and that's because it allows you to go in and clear your mind and let it process that information. You want to use that as a way of preparing yourself so that you can take more action with extroverted sensing. Does that make sense? You don't want to just rely on it all the time. You want to give it the time it needs so that its voice is heard, and then go back into extroverted sensing and use your willpower to test that so that you can grow and you can be a stronger person in the ways that you're trying to be. And the last function is the inferior function or aspirational function. And for you, this is extroverted feeling. And so extroverted feeling is feeling. So it's a decision-making function. And feeling is, as you would imagine, different from thinking. It's about making harmonious decisions, making decisions based on how is it going to affect people and the harmony of the situation. And it balances things, it weighs things, it evaluates them. It's not that clear cut, like, is this correct or incorrect? It's like, is this right or wrong? Is this good or bad? Does that make sense, the difference there? And it's extroverted, so it's about checking in with the outer world to see what other people need, what other people think, what other people want, and how to support them and how to make the world of humans a better place, or put yourself into that and adjust yourself to them. Whereas the introverted functions are more like cutting away and purifying it for your own good, for your own understanding. The extroverted functions are letting go of that, letting go of who you are so that you can blend and merge in with the outer world in some way. And so extroverted feeling is going to probably rub you the wrong way, like that, just the idea of proactively relating and bonding with people through big hugs and smiles and helping them with their issues and emoting, expressing how you feel about things. It's probably kind of a sensitive realm for you. And that's because you spend so much time in introverted thinking that extroverted feeling is going to be like, this isn't really where I want to be, right? Because people are illogical. People don't make sense all the time, right? And introverted thinking wants to make sense of things all the time. And so it's kind of this idea of like, well, what do you want me to do? What do I just tell me how I can fit in better with this situation. Just tell me what you need, what you want, and I'll do it, right? But that's not as proactive as it should be if you're trying to make better use of extroverted feeling. If you're trying to actually build those bridges between people and get people together, or get people in your life a little bit more, or get you into their life a little bit more, it needs to be more, I don't want to say thought through, it needs to be more engaged with. So finding ways to support other people, to heal other people. I didn't mention, I think of introverted intuition as kind of this mystic or this ranger character that's scouting through the forests and the woods and kind of going into different entities and into the mind and all that clairvoyant type stuff. And extroverted feeling is more of that proactive, unifying cleric or healer that's going to be in the front lines and be like, okay, we need everybody together, we need to rally the troops and boost morale. And that's not really how that analytical wizard introverted thinking works, right? So what you're going to want to do is to go find the people that you want in your life, and don't worry about how much they value you, because there might be a little sensitivity in there, like worrying that people don't realize how much you actually think through things, and how much information and clarity you bring to a situation. But just try to push that to the side and go in there and be like, what do you want? What do you need in a more proactive way? And I'm going to get that for you. Or I'm going to read the situation, read the body language, and calculate, like, what could I do to make this person feel better in the situation? Those are just a couple little ideas there that might help you get in touch a little bit more with extroverted feeling, and hopefully before it explodes. If you spend so much time on introverted thinking and not enough time listening to extroverted feeling, it's going to find a way to make itself heard, And you don't want that to happen when you don't want it to happen, right? That's when you might blow up, when you might get a little bit screamy or tense, or I don't know, like just getting emotional that is way out of character for you. You know, you want to find ways of doing that before it happens, before that happens. Give enough time to it, give it enough care before it actually does that. So you don't feel like you're going crazy and you're the only one that's thinking through all this stuff, and you know, nobody cares about you and all that stuff. Okay. I know this was kind of a little rambly video, but I wanted to talk about ISTPs, and I did. So my job's done. Hopefully it was pretty helpful for you. Hopefully it gave you some clarity into those 4 cognitive functions and the personality type of the ISTP. I've been so amazed by ISTPs. Like it's a completely different world for me. And so me listening through how accurate you are, and like you're like, no, that's not the correct word. What's the correct word? Here's the correct word that's going to explain my point in the most concise way, and then we can go from there, and we can actually enjoy life and experience reality for what it is. And we can, you know, it doesn't have to be through sports. Like I said, it could be through crafts and making things, and even bonding with people on a highly intellectual level. I think it's just so cool. So keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully this video helps you do it maybe a little bit better, or gives you some self-acceptance into what's actually going on. All right? So keep up the lifelong questing. Good luck, have fun. Peace.